Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey, podcast listeners, Al Martin here. Welcome back to Making Data Simple. As always, I like to jump right in. Today, I have Armon Petrossian, who is the co-founder and CEO of Coalesce, data transformation tool built for scale. Prior, Armon was part of the founding team at Warescape, a leading provider of data automation software. Armon believes automating data transformation is a vital step in overcoming transformation bottlenecks. He's thinking about how to automate these processes in the same way that processes have been automated in the rest of the analytics stack. He has 4 tips on how enterprises can keep up with today's world and their rich data insights to empower innovation. I will get to those in a bit. But with that, just a quick introduction. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, Al. Let's do this.
So let's do it. I'd like to hear a little bit about yourself, your experience. Go back as far as you like and what brings you to today.
Yeah, funny enough, my background largely has been in sales, but I was in a bit of a unique role because I was so early at our previous company where I really got to touch pretty much every department in the organization, whether that was on the pre-sale side, whether that was taking feedback requests for customers to the engineering team, whether that was dealing with PR or marketing, general go-to-market ideas, roadmap. I mean, it really was touching so many different things. And so that being said, however, the real focus of my role and skill set has largely been in sales and go-to-market, which is quite uncommon in the analytics space.
Do you have a technical background before that, or no?
I just through being in this space and being as curious of a person I am, I have become, I would say, strangely technical for being a salesperson, but that's never really been the focus of my career or education. It just happened through osmosis. It's always helpful to give a little bit of context on the founding story of Coalesce. And basically, my co-founder, his name's Satish, and myself, we met almost a decade ago at the company you mentioned, Warescape. And while we were there, we were exposed to some of the world's largest and most complex data warehouses and the issues that were associated with trying to implement, manage, and support these types of projects at scale. And what we found was the most predominant problem, the biggest issue that plagues organizations when it comes to being able to be data-driven is this bottleneck of taking that data once it's been landed in your cloud platform and trying to get it to the point that's consumable, which is what has become the term of now data transformations. And so we had a unique vantage point into seeing, cross industry, all different types of organizations and the issues that they dealt with when it came to basically performing data transformations at a scale that it was so large, and took the lessons we learned, took some of the experiences we had, and started the company that is now Coalesce in order to help automate and add a level of efficiency to the data transformation process that just never has been seen before.
So I was perusing through your company website, and this is how I think I'll start some of the questioning. The website says the founding team at Coalesce was uniquely exposed to some of the largest and most complex data warehouses in the world has ever seen. That's what you already mentioned. They have a combined 40 years in data transformation space, are committed to the success of their partners and customers. So what specifically, though, within all of that gave rise to the company? I mean, why now? Something must have triggered you that said, hey, all right, we've got this experience. We need to take this experience elsewhere.
There's a few key reasons. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that automation has impacted every segment of the analytics workflow, and really where organizations spend all their time and money and resources trying to be data driven is getting that data from its raw format to that point that it's consumable by a BI tool or maybe a data science tool. And so that's the bottleneck. The status quo, if you take Coalesce out of the picture, is multi-month, typically year-long or multi-year-long projects that require tons of people, that are really difficult to manage the larger the project gets, and remain iterative and dynamic to the ever-changing business requirements that are constantly changing. And it serves as kind of the final frontier and opportunity for technology to come in and apply that same philosophy that's been successful in every other part of the analytics stack, but now to transformations. And so we're very passionate about the mission, about helping data practitioners, data engineers that use Coalesce really serve them as a force multiplier to help them be way more productive than any other technology on the market, which in turn allows organizations to consume their data faster, make decisions faster, have more consistency with the transformations that are built, and understand how those transformations were built at a scale that makes it really difficult without a tool like ours. And so there really wasn't another option until we appeared, when it came to a software as a service, simple to use, easy to get ramped up, user friendly automation technology focused on transformations. And we just had so much unique experience in this specific space. It felt like it would have been a shame if we didn't take those lessons we learned, take that experience that we had, and really build something amazing for an audience that we were very familiar with over the course of this past decade or so.
I have some questions on the secret sauce, but backing up are you self-funded, venture funded today? I mean, how'd you get started?
Yeah, we are venture capital backed. So we just raised an amazing Series A from a lead investor, Emergence Capital. This was after the public markets had tanked. So as you can imagine, it was a little stressful going out fundraising, but they were our number one choice by far. It wasn't even close. Couldn't be happier to have them as our investors. And that was fairly recent, just within the past few months here.
Oh, Pat, so 2022 Q4? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So what you say is certainly true. I was reading McKinsey, and they have a study out there that estimated there was 10 years worth of digital transformation in like 1 year over COVID, where everybody is taking this opportunity to do their digital modernization. In fact, I think it's something like 80% or almost 80% say that the pandemic has underscored the immaturity of their digitization strategy. So I get your interest, but tell me more about the automation as you define it. I mean, we're automating data flows. Explain it a little bit more, and then I want to go into what you do differently.
Yeah. So I'll also share, when it comes to any type of enterprise modernization, digital transformation, however you want to call it, data is the lifeblood of those types of movements and changes for an organization. It really is what the foundational layer is that any type of decisions are made off of when it comes to a digital modernization effort or a transformation effort. Coalesce is a couple layers deeper from that high level piece. And what we aim to do is automate as much of the development processes associated with taking that raw data that's getting piped in from various different sources, whether that's your applications, whether that's an on-premise database, your ERP systems, whatever it may be. You've got this vast amount of sources that are getting loaded in raw data, raw formats, and you want to take all that information and transform it in a way that it's actually consumable. Those processes are really time consuming, very labor intensive. Oftentimes you see migrations where you're looking at a multi-year long engagement where you have to bring on an army of consultants to try to support it. And Coalesce really wants to help users get there faster and do more with the existing team, or just accelerate that overall journey. And when you look at the end product of what those typically looks like, it's typically some type of view or star schema that's combining all these different sources of data that are very different in a way that's presentable by some type of dashboarding and intelligence tool with appropriate lineage and governance and standardization across the code that's actually being performed in order to get to that point.
just to make sure I'm clear, I mean, I understand all those concepts, but are you involved with all of the above? I mean, is that Coalesce, or what area? I mean, is it an ETL tool at the core? Presume not. Is it? Do you add governance on top, or are you just sourcing the disparate repositories and creating a channel into the cloud? I mean, you're gonna have to explain this a little bit further to me.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that we've seen the acronym of ETL get slightly adjusted with the adoption and rise of the cloud platforms. So what used to be ETL, where you'd extract the data from the source, transform it on a separate server, and then load it into the database, has become somewhat of an obsolete practice. And instead, it shifted to this movement of ELT. And as a
Mhm.
result of that shift, there was a decoupling in the acronym where you now have two components that are best of breed for extraction and load, for ingesting that data in an automated fashion, and then a standalone tool or segment which is purely data transformations. So the EL piece being serviced by an ingestion mechanism, the transformation piece being performed by a product like Coalesce in an automated fashion. And so Coalesce focuses as like the transformation engine that sits on top of the
Okay.
database platform, just a lot faster and a much more simple, easy way.
So I got it. You would do the data transformation on top of that.
An organization wants to go through, say, a cloud migration from their on-premise data warehouse, what they would do is they would ingest that data from their source systems. And then once that data has been landed in its raw format, Coalesce would pick up from there to get it from that raw format to the point that it's consumable.
All right, I got it now. Give me a use case then that you would take that from, like a typical customer use case, maybe your best customer use case.
Oh man, there's endless amounts. I would say one that's always fun is like manufacturing use cases where you've got all types of different sensor data and IoT data coming from your production line, and you want to be able to understand at what point or what threshold if certain products or certain parts of the product heat up to a certain degree would lead to more product defects based on historical data, and determining what's going to maximize the yield for that actual supply chain or production line for the organization and the products that they build. You see things like that in manufacturing. You'll see different types of use cases in financial services, retail. I mean, really, any organization that's trying to be data driven that has large amounts of historical data is a great fit for Coalesce.
So what are you doing differently then? There are a lot of other transformation tools out there.
Yeah, so I would say that the reason why, so first off, there's a unifying theme around all of our customers when they use Coalesce, and it's some level of exponential productivity gains when compared to any other option on the market. So they know for certain whether it's 2x or 100x or somewhere in between, they're going to get an output from their existing team and users that's far greater, faster, and easier to manage than any other technology when it comes to data transformations. How we unlock that is really unique to us, and I would say associated with one very granular aspect of our product architecture. It's what we call a column aware architecture. What
Mhm.
that basically means is that Coalesce is the only technology that was built from the ground up to leverage column metadata to its fullest extent. And what that looks like, and when you think about how you're dealing with data when you're applying transformations, you're typically doing things like maybe applying a bulk statement to 40 columns. You might be trying to create a type 2 dimension where you select a primary key and then some columns that you want to track changes for. You might be duplicating columns and applying a case when statement. I mean, so much of transformations is column driven. And so with Coalesce, we take that column metadata and give the users the ability to apply transformations at a scale that relates to columns, whether that's in bulk or whether that's uh, giving the user a really simple interface to designate that primary key, designate those change tracking keys, and then automate all the SQL that is supposed to correspondingly be written by hand, but now being generated by our tool. It's also what allows us to provide lineage at a rate that I've never seen in the market before. So oftentimes data lineage is a huge pain point for organizations. And by us taking this column aware approach, we're able to not just produce table level lineage, but column level lineage. And we're able to give the users the ability to manipulate that lineage and propagate different columns upstream or downstream, and just give them the full reins around how they deal with their data at a rate that just hasn't been seen before because of this unique product architecture.
So does that mean that you're only targeting column stores or warehouses they're in? Or, I mean, I guess
No, there's, it's so funny. I do get this question sometimes because there's a columnar database that was a very popular, very common thing. This is completely unrelated. This is purely metadata. And so, but we just leverage that metadata in a completely different way, in a very unique way to our business and our product, versus it being anything to do with databases or types of database support.
You talked a little bit about the expected return on investment. Usually when you're dealing with some form of automation, you're reducing labor spend, I don't know if you have AI, which would reduce the unnecessary human intervention. You can eliminate friction points. What's your ROI? What's your pitch?
Yeah, and there's so many angles to come out from an ROI or proof of value when it comes to Coalesce. And we're very fortunate to be able to deliver that. And what I typically see in the data space is that it's usually unclear when it comes to technologies, unfortunately. Whereas with Coalesce, how we really position the product is we go into an organization and we ask them about upcoming projects or maybe an existing project that they've built with their data, and understand the timeline associated with how long it took them and how big of a team it took them to perform that. And we aim to rebuild or build out that next project in a fraction of the time with less people, less resources. And we use that. So instead of it taking, say, a month to build that existing project, if we're able to accomplish it in 2 days, we use that to define the value associated with the product and help the users get comfortable being able to accelerate their development, accelerate these project timelines. And so usually we'll see at some exponential scale, I would say 2x on the low end, 100x on the very, very extreme end. It's usually somewhere in between there. And then reference that kind of proof of concept that we perform as a way to justify the cost and associate it to the value of being able to do things faster and faster and in a much more elegant way.
Say more on what that engagement looks like. Do you usually have a customer reaching out to you saying, hey, look, I'm struggling with data transformation. We've got the E accomplished, but we need the T.
Yeah. It's so funny because I have yet to come to a business, go talk to an organization where they are just thrilled by the rate at which the data team is able to deliver their data. It almost never happens. And so the data team, whether it's a centralized IT team or a line of business that's trying to deal with the data, is almost always under massive amounts of pressure to deliver faster and be more dynamic on the changing requirements from the consumers of data. And so when they see Coalesce, when they view it as a way to actually be able to meet these demands in the first place. And so it's quite common that, we enter the picture to help make the relationship that usually has a lot of tension between the data producers and consumers a much more harmonious, a much more collaborative experience so that they can actually keep up with the pace of those demands and sometimes exceed them in a way that makes the consumers uncomfortable. And so now the tables have turned a bit and you're able to deliver things at a rate that the consumers haven't seen before. And it really turns into this amazing snowball effect where, one question turns to one answer that leads to 5 more questions, that leads to 5 more answers, that leads to 25 more questions, and exponentially grows the investment into the data team.
A lot of companies are, they're trying to save money at this point in time, and there's a little bit of not made here mentality. So it feels like you're going to have to do some kind of services, like convince them to use your product. Then you're going to prove out your product. I mean, how do you make that process? Or what's your trick to make that process as seamless and as swift as possible?
Yeah. So and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'll dive into it deeper for this specific piece, which is What you've seen when it comes to the analytics stack or the analytics workflow, the types of technologies that you've seen be most successful are ones that give you flexibility, but also ease of use, simplicity, intuitiveness, and automation. And so you've seen that touch every part of the analytics workflow, with the exception of transformations. And so the vision for Coalesce was to give a product that accommodated the most sophisticated, most complex users, but make it simple enough that a less technical data practitioner can also use it, and everything in between. And so, another reason why we wanted to build a cloud native solution was so we could really unlock and enable users to perform transformations at an automated way with a self-service model. So one of the coolest things, I got this feedback earlier today from another company, where I always love seeing this, is they went and kicked off a free trial with our product, no sales engagement. They followed through our guides on our docs online, and we were able to get from that raw data to a consumable layer in a time that was a fraction of what it would have taken otherwise. And so being able to really provide users with a way where they can quickly, simply get up and running and be productive fast is so core to our beliefs and mission here at Coalesce. And so that's a way to drive business and meet new companies and new people. And then we also have a very traditional model where if a company wants to come in and request a demo and see the tool and work with us in a more formal way, we're willing to help them on the pre-sales motion. And lastly, we're really blessed to have such a great partner ecosystem where, as we lean into these different relationships, both with SIs and with technology vendors, they recognize that this is such a big problem that needs to be solved, that they bring us into certain scenarios where the customer feels the pain that we aim to solve as well for them. So all types of ways that we find different companies. But the biggest reason why I would say is because this is such a massive problem that plagues pretty much every business that's not a customer of Coalesce yet. So it's quite common to be able to diagnose this issue because we know how prevalent it is for so many different organizations in the world.
I love how you say yet. That's the true entrepreneur coming out. Very nice.
Or
Hey,
maybe the
so how
salesman in
what
me.
salesman in you? Well, that's all right. That's all good. That's what
Yeah.
you need. You need to have that killer instinct. So, what is the delineation between the services you provide and the tools? The tool do it all, or is there a service component? Is it 50-50 or what?
No, there's no services component. We aim to defer services to our amazing SI ecosystem. We've got about 25 of them globally. And really, we want to focus on building the absolute best product possible and did not want to be buried with supporting the services org at our software business. And it really builds such a great complementary relationship where we can reciprocate with our SIs by helping them get involved in what are typically long projects, given its data warehousing and data in general is ever evolving. And so we focus purely on the software side. Of course, we help kind of train up SIs, train up our customers, but it's the services piece is not a focus of our business.
So, the tool then converts, cleanses, structures the data for the client using column metadata as your secret sauce, so to speak, including lineage as well?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So we leverage that column level metadata. It populates the interface that you work within. It's what allows you to generate and automate SQL correspondingly as the user drives the product. And then one of the byproducts or one of the results of this architectural decision is that you get not just that table level lineage, but that column level lineage and the ability to interact with it in a way that's, I won't say impossible because I try not to use that word, but I have yet to see it be done before. And it all comes back to that very, very core piece around that column aware architecture, leveraging that column metadata in a way that really gets the most value out of it possible.
Maybe you said this before, but if you would, just a few more comments on what brought you to the column metadata.
Yeah, I think we were exposed to the potential of it in the past. And we were also exposed to the fact that other technologies in the space lacked it altogether. And so really we wanted to take the potential that we saw as we dealt with so many different large organizations when it came to how to leverage that column level metadata, but completely reimagine it in the cloud and really use it in a way that could allow and unlock users to be as productive as possible. And so it was a combination of things, both dealing with large businesses and enterprises in the world, along with seeing the potential for it, and really taking those lessons and forming what has become Coalesce today, and really just leveraging some of these architectural aspects to the fullest extent.
What technology wise, what is your biggest inhibitor? What gets in the way for data
Yeah,
transformation?
it's so interesting. I think that there really isn't, outside of a company not being ready for the cloud, for example, or something like very obvious that would inhibit adoption of Coalesce. I think that the the biggest challenge is more so around political scenarios, or you know simply a misconception of what automation really means. I think that sometimes data practitioners get they may latch on to certain technologies and forget the big picture of why they're there, and what the focus is of dealing with data, which is getting value from it, getting insights from it, being able to make decisions more clearly from it. And so, when you have a persona like that, it may be difficult for them to or perhaps they resist change to some degree. I would say that's the biggest inhibitor. But I would say typically, as we were discussing earlier, businesses are so frustrated, or data consumers are so frustrated with how long it takes to actually be able to consume that data from the data producers, that typically it's something that we can overcome, especially in a time like now, where we're starting to see all businesses across the board start to focus on efficiency, start to focus on how can we do more with our existing team. Our budget for hiring more people got slashed, or we unfortunately had to let go of people because of layoffs. And how can we accomplish more with even less people than we had, yesterday? And so Coalesce kind of helps fill that void in a way, that I think we're excited about to be able to fill that void. Obviously, not very excited about seeing the impact that's unfortunately been happening on the livelihood of people, but hope we can help accommodate some of these users, some of these tough situations that people are in, at least from a business perspective.
But even the persona that doesn't get the power of data, they must get something. You're in there, you're talking to them. So
Yeah,
they must be challenging you at the same time, but they know they have a problem.
totally. That's the thing. It's so crystal clear that organizations struggle with this every time you talk to them, regardless of the persona, regardless of the role that they're in. It makes that conversation much smoother.
Where do you plan to be in a couple of years?
Oh man, it's a great question. It just depends on what aspect of it, what aspect of our business uh, you want to look at. But I would say the easiest way to put it is we expect to see exponential growth on all fronts: personnel, revenue, awareness, you name it. I think we're on a great momentum curve right now. And the biggest thing is just staying focused and continuing to execute the way I know our team can.
Now I know you were venture funded, recently. However, how long has the company been going?
Yeah, another interesting thing. So, company's been around for just over a couple of years. However, we came out of stealth just over a year ago. I mean, it's almost exactly a year ago from
Hmm.
today. And so that was a really interesting and unique experience, because it was the first time I had ever taken a company out of stealth in general, or been a part of one, and kind of seeing how the market reacts, and the momentum that's been built has been a really fun part of the journey.
What's the monetization strategy? Is it all SaaS or?
It's all SaaS. We do give users the ability to deploy in network if they so wish. This is pretty common. I think one thing that's a bit unique about Coalesce is that we started in the upmarket. We started kind of by building the most difficult solution, or difficult or the most difficult solution for the most difficult and complex parts of the data warehouse analytics workflow. And so naturally, we're dealing with Fortune 500 customers who have a lot of concerns around data security, data sensitivity. And so we rolled out a way for them to deploy within their network if they so wish. But most commonly, people just use our software as a service model that's all hosted.
So you mentioned Satish. He the CDO or what's his?
Yeah, he's the CTO. Yes, Satish is
CTO.
the much smarter second half of me. He is the brains behind this operation. Typically, I'm just the talking head, but he is an amazing individual, and yes, he is our CTO.
Well, you sound very technical, so you could have fooled me, my friend. You could have fooled me.
He's
All right,
coached me well. Let's just say that he's coached me well.
So one thing I don't think you answered is why was this the right time?
Yeah, it's funny. I would describe why now is such a perfect time for a business to exist more than ever, because again, it comes back to this kind of evolution of how automation's impacted different segments of analytics. So as the ability to get access to data from any data source has been automated on an automated database, the next step, the next obvious step is, okay, great, we can get all the data we want, literally anything pretty much. Now, how do we actually get that data to the point that it's consumable as efficiently as possible with that same philosophy and the same principles that we've seen be successful in the other parts of the stack? And that problem has not been solved yet. It is exactly what we're aiming to accomplish.
Hey, look, I come from a non-sales background. I think I was Satish before, and I made the transition like a year and a couple months ago to technical sales that I hear here at IBM. So it's a different animal for me. Sounds like you've been in sales a while. You're still in sales. What lessons do you have? Give me your top 3 lessons. What makes a great seller?
That is a good question. Let me think about what would be the one thing I would say that I see people or individuals fall short of. First and foremost, you have to sell something that you believe in. It has to be a product that you believe in, and something that you're going to be able to have the conviction and confidence to really help an organization or help an audience. I think the other area I would focus on is identifying the problem that your user is experiencing or that your audience is experiencing. If there's no problem, then there's no point in trying to sell a solution. And it's always something that I am really clear about, which is trying to understand and trying to listen to the prospect, trying to listen to the organization and hear them and say, hey, what do you really struggle with day to day? What's the biggest pain points that cause you issues or cause your business issues? What's the most frustrating thing? And work from there instead of trying to go and pitch something that you may not know is even relevant to the audience that you're working with. And if there's this clarity around what the problems are that need to be solved, and you're talking to that person and you have a solution that can help alleviate that pain, everything kind of unfolds from there. So really, it's more of being a problem identifier and problem solver than anything when it comes to selling. So,
All right, fair enough. Hey, I always ask guests what books they recommend or what book you have recommended most.
what book have I recommended most? I'm a big reader. I love so many different types of business books. To be honest with you, I'm trying to think of which one I've given the most out as a gift. It really depends on the person. One that immediately comes to mind, and this is purely just because of your question prior to this around sales, is The Go Giver.
The Go Giver. Huh,
Yeah,
I've not read that.
The Go Giver. If you're in pre-sales now, you should definitely check it out. I think it's a great book. Focused on really how to help others and how that turns into just a natural reciprocation, as long as you're focused on genuinely providing value for others and helping others in the world. So
Go Giver. All right, I've got that down. Have you ever read the Challenger Sale?
absolutely, yes,
That's one of my favorites.
that's a great book. It's funny. I would say one of the other things that I think is super important in a sales role is to be able to challenge the status quo and be able to help help your audience think differently when it comes to problems, right? So I think it's a great book.
Fantastic. Anything that I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked?
Oh no, this is your show. I'm just the guest. So I mean, unless
Okay.
there's anything that you are dying to know about me or our business, there's nothing that I would ever tell you to ask me.
All right. No, all good. You can, by the way. Where are you located?
I'm in San Francisco. I'm
San
originally
Francisco.
I'm originally from the Pac Northwest, Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
And as just part of this mission at Coalesce, I moved down to San Francisco in the absolute depths of the pandemic. So this place was a ghost town when I moved here, pretty much 2 years ago. But I've been loving it. It's a great time out here. I've always wanted to live here. I'm out in North Beach. If you ever find yourself out here, let me know. I'll take you to some great Italian restaurants.
Oh man, you guys got the best restaurants. I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
I've,
I'm a big
I've been there
fan.
many times. Been there many times. So where can folks reach you?
Yeah, you can just go to our website, coalesce.io. You can reach out to me personally on LinkedIn anytime. If you have any questions, go to our website. You can reach out to me directly. It's super simple. Coalesce.io or LinkedIn, Armon Petrossian.
Armon Petrossian. Thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was such a fun time.
It was. Hey, listeners, hit us on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Thank you for being here. Till next time, I'll see you on the podcast. See you all.